Other teams might as well buy their tickets to Cancun now because the Celtics are on the path to ban on 19. With us on this journey are Jay, King, Sam, Packer, Brian, Robb, and Sean. So I'm gonna need you all to buckle in because this pod's gonna be a wild ride.
Still particle, the Boston Celtics still particle.
I've never seen anyone lose their season 2 years in a row.
A psychosexual celebration of the Boston Celtics.
What's happening? It's Jay King here from The Athletic with Brian Robb from MassLive.com. It was a crazy night last night for the Celtics organization, an emotional night last night for the Celtics organization, an incredibly damaging night for the Celtics organization. Let's just kind of go through what it was like covering that, B-Rob. So obviously, Jayson Tatum ruptured his Achilles, as we now know, with about 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter of Game 4. And Celtics were already like on their way to a loss. They were going to fall down 3-1 in this series, which is a huge surprise to a lot of people. But Tatum was phenomenal. He was just incredible in that game. One of the best games he's ever played. Goes down, clearly in a lot of pain. In the locker room, like, it was abundantly clear that he had basically torn his Achilles. Like, there was no doubt in my mind, looking at the reaction of all his teammates, looking at his mom was in the locker room at some points, his stepfather was in the locker room at some points. You could see Drew Hanlon, and everyone was just so emotional. Like, it was very clear that it was just a massive, massive injury with massive, massive implications for him, for the franchise. Like, outside of the locker room the day after Isaiah Thomas's sister passed away, and guys didn't know how to act with him. He was clearly like just devastated. Outside of that, it was probably the most quiet, downtrodden, like just devastated locker room that I've ever encountered in how many years now? Like close to 15 years of covering the Celtics. It was truly like you could just feel that everybody was just gutted by that injury.
Yeah, you could hear a pin drop. And it was honestly sadly just like an appropriate atmosphere given what had happened. The game itself, a brutal loss for the team, became totally secondary because everyone knew, like, Jayson Tatum, the guy who has been as durable as any player, any all-star in the NBA, this century. This was the guy this was not supposed to happen to. And when he went down like that, and when Joe Mazzulla calls his last time out of the game with 3 minutes left, that's when you know, like, when Tatum is signaling for that timeout, that's like, oh crap, like this looks like worst case scenario. And then everything in the locker room, Jaylen Brown's press conference, everyone just talking about it, like no one could say it out loud what it was yet, but it seemed like everyone deep down knew, and that just made it a really tough scene after a really tough game for the team.
Yeah, it was like just so emotional. Everybody was just really, really emotional. Jaylen was like, I just don't have any words. And when I tweeted some of his quotes, a lot of people were mad at Jaylen. Like he should have just. But from his responses, when he was saying, I have no words, he was like, I feel for my brother.
Right.
That was what he meant, not anything more than that. It was, and now, so he underwent the surgery today. Celtics said it was a successful surgery. Like, like all surgeries seem to be. Um, and I mean, you obviously he's out for the rest of this playoff run, however long it lasts. Could be just one game. We'll talk about the chances for the Celtics of coming back in this series, or at least making it a competitive series. But beyond that, he could miss all of next season, close to all of next season, and the impact of that. Let's put aside the fact that he might never be the same again, which is realistic with an Achilles. Like Kevin Durant provides hope, some other guys provide hope. Recently, it's not the death sentence it used to be to a career, but putting that aside for a second, like just the fact that he could be damaged even when he gets back to full health or close to full health. Just the fact that he's going to be out for most of next season could change their plans drastically moving forward. And obviously, this was going to be an eventful summer, I think, no matter what, just because to keep everybody on the current roster would cost like $500 million, including luxury taxes, which I don't think would be tenable for any owner. And so significant changes were always going to come. But now you add the layer of they will not be certainly title favorites. I don't see a world in which they're title contenders. Even they'll be pretty good if they keep most of the guys together. But this derails everything. And my first thought was Al Horford will be 39 next month. Drew Holiday will be 35 next month. Like, how does this change the plans for those guys? Because Al Horford has never given any indication that he wants to retire or anything. But you think he would want to continue competing for championships. And if Jayson Tatum's not there, that could change his future. Drew Holiday, now instead of being like, he's a key piece to this team, it's like he'll be 36 probably by the time Jayson Tatum has worked himself back into, high level basketball. And like he could be a step or two slower than he is right now. Like, how does that change that? And that was just the first part of it. Then you could get into, do they do more drastic stuff? Do they think about trading Kristaps Porzingis, who's been ill and has missed a ton of time during his time with the Celtics? Do they think about trading Jaylen Brown to shed even more salary because he has an enormous salary and next year they're not going to compete? Like how much this could ripple and change everything for the organization is crazy. And that was just like my initial thoughts.
That was the craziest thing, like coming home from Madison Square Garden last night. That's what hit me. It's just like, oh, the entire future of the Celtics has changed with this one injury. And it's like, you think they had this window. It was the last year, it was this year, and maybe it was next year. You knew changes were going to come this summer, but you thought as long as there's Jaylen and Jayson, they're going to be a team that can contend.
I had someone with the team tell me as long as they have Jaylen, Jayson, and Derek.
But I feel like I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I felt that way.
There's drastic. Like, you knew there were going to be changes in this offseason, but now the fact that Tatum is likely going to miss the entire next season, I feel like it just opens up the just possibilities of what could possibly happen. And it just makes you think of just like championship windows and how hard it is just to get one. And I know I, as a Celtics fan, was greedy and like thinking about the repeat this year. But you go back to the 2008 Celtics. They have the KG injury in 2009. They lose 20 in 2010. This is their 2009 year, and then Tatum's going to miss their entire 2010 year, and we have no idea who's going to be on the team for the season that Tatum comes back fully healthy a series from now. Like we just don't know what the window is. And not to mention, like, even if Tatum comes back fully healthy, or like best case scenario comes back like 95% of who he is, I have genuine questions about whether or not Jaylen Brown is still on the team at that point, just because are you going to spend $500 million on a team that's not very good? Do they try and tank? Possibly not fully tank, but do they like play the lottery game? Do they trade assets to try and you just have really no idea. And already what was going to be a very interesting offseason, everything is in flux now. And so you just it's like that the gravity of that hit me just on the C train headed back from MSG last night. I was just like, I have no idea what the future for the Celtics holds. And 10 days ago, I was pretty sure I knew what the future for the Celtics held. Even 3 days ago.
Yeah. Literally everything is on the table as far as the offseason goes from the names you guys mentioned in my mind. And and threading the needle to figure out, okay, how can we best rework this terrible situation to figure out, like, how do we maximize ourselves for 2 or 3 years down the line? That's a far more different question than being like, okay, how can the window's open, we're going to have less to build with it, but now next year, we're going to lose some guys, but how can we still make it work? Now it's like, all right, who's going to be good to go 2 or 3 years from now? And how can we best position our team to build with that? And it creates a lot of just tough, painful decisions that are going to be coming down the pike from both a financial standpoint, in terms of maybe even getting under the luxury tax for next year to reset that clock so you're better able to spend down the line, because why are you going in the tax next year if you're not a contender? Like questions like that, to just being like, as you guys mentioned, like Horford, Drew Holiday, et cetera, like go all the way down the line, like who's going to be in position to help a contending team 2 years from now. And that's all tough stuff for Brad Stevens and his staff that they're going to have to parse through this summer. But this just, throws in their face to a degree that they probably never would have imagined, like you said, Packard, a couple of days ago.
And I think so. Jayson Tatum, obviously, he takes incredible care of his body. And if there's one player to like go through this and you expect him to treat the rehab process like as well as he could and do every single thing he can to maximize his chances of coming back at full strength, it's Jayson Tatum. That said, there's also, on top of now, I don't want to say like just casting aside the chances for next season, because like I said, if they keep the majority of their other talent, then they'll still have a pretty good team.
Yeah. It's a playoff team.
And there's a chance like he comes back in like 9 months. Like,
yeah,
they're not going to rush him back, but like I can see Jayson Tatum putting in the work and like him being healthy to give it a go in next year's playoffs. Like,
and
I don't
also him
that's out of the
arguing
question.
with the
right, pushing to be back by the All-Star break,
which is probably part of the problem. I mean, and it's impossible to know whether playing a ton of minutes caught up to him, what the impact of that is. But since he entered the NBA, nobody played more minutes, including regular season and playoffs, than Jayson Tatum did. So that's 2017. That's 8 years of Jayson Tatum leading the league in minutes. He also played on Team USA, played a ton of minutes with that.
Didn't play that many minutes with Team USA.
Practice minutes. Practice minutes. But there are. So I don't want to get too far into the conversation of whether the minutes thing mattered, because really at this point it doesn't matter. This happened.
But that's a change moving forward, though, Jay. Right? Like it's like coming off this injury now. You can't.
Now you have to expect that he's not going to be the 74 game a season guy.
Totally. That
you're going to have to load manage him and tell him, no, Jason, you're not playing tonight. No matter how much you want to play in Charlotte on a Tuesday, it's just not going to happen. I think the Celtics probably should have won that argument more often the last few years, at least. But moving forward, yeah, definitely he'll be more of a part-time player. And part of his value, honestly, is like he plays every night. He's a rare star who plays every night, who plays a ton of minutes, who can be depended on night in, night out in this era of basketball. And that's honestly something that he should take pride in, that people should really appreciate about him, because he did want to play every night, every minute, every second. And he wanted to play no matter where they were on the road. He wanted to be in the lineup. He just loves basketball. And I think that's probably why you saw him so torn up after the injury. Like, he has big dreams. He wants to be like Larry Bird. He said it. He wants to win championships. He wants to win an MVP. He has big, big goals, big, big dreams. And this could derail a lot of that. It at least takes away 1 year when he would have been in his prime. Pausing the stuff about, Tatum and the future. I was very surprised that the Celtics just haven't been good enough in this series. Like, just extremely shocked. And I thought it was a bad sign for the Celtics that they lose game one. You could say whatever. They pissed away game one. They were still the better team for, 38 minutes of that game. To then lose game two in the same fashion was just a really bad sign to me. And I had a lot of Knicks writers like, yeah, I thought I was going to win by 20 in game four. I was like, game two was a really bad sign. Like, it was a really bad. That was not a must-win game, but they knew they had to bring it. They knew they had to be great, and they did the exact same thing they did in game one. And
the Knicks offense was shit for most of that game too, Jay. In game two.
Game two, the offense completely failed down the stretch. Game four, before the Tatum injury, they couldn't get a stop. They were just absolutely just some of the worst defense I've seen. And there was just nothing they could do. I don't know why they just kept going to the let's guard Jalen Brunson with Derek White. Like, that was their solution, but they was just absolutely dominated. And then I felt like Kristaps and Al, they went double big for the majority of the fourth quarter. It was just not working. I thought they should have gotten Jalen back in the game earlier. They should have got Peyton Pritchard, but there was just I thought Drew Holiday on Jalen was the only thing that kind of slowed down Jalen Brunson, and they just didn't go to that consistently and just did not get a stop for basically the entire second half of game four. It was shocking.
They took a 14-point lead in the third quarter and immediately had 3 consecutive mistakes on Jalen Brunson. The first one, they had a miscommunication. Derek White thinks they're switching. Al Horford thinks he's in drop. Jalen Brunson gets a wide open 3. The next Knicks possession, nobody picks up Jalen Brunson, and Al Horford late in the game has to sprint out to him. He's out of position, allows him to get for a layup. Al Horford should not be guarding Jalen Brunson. That's not your matchup unless you're switching. And for some reason, he picked him up, and Brunson got a layup. Third possession was the Jaylen Brown flagrant foul. So you go from up 14 to all of a sudden you're up 5, just like that, because of 3 things you could have absolutely controlled. And so this Tatum injury is terrible. It's catastrophic. It is horrible for him. I feel so bad for him. I feel bad for the Celtics front office. I feel bad for everybody involved that they have to change their entire plans. But also, this team was on the way out. For whatever reason, this year's team did not have the focus of last year's team, did not have the consistency of last year's team. And I think maybe it's just the fatigue of trying to go back to back. And it's mental, it's physical, but you could, and they also have injuries and illnesses. Porzingis, he's super fatigued because of illness. Jaylen Brown clearly hasn't been himself. He's not even remotely close to what he was during last year's playoff run. And then you look up, they're down 3-1 to a Knicks team that really isn't that good. This Knicks team is fine. They're tough. Brunson has been phenomenal in parts of this series. There is no chance the Celtics should be losing to this team if they were at their best. And so it's been a stunning series. And I think the Celtics would have to come to terms with that. And even without a Tatum injury, they would have had to address some things this offseason beyond just the salary stuff. Like maybe get younger, maybe get more athletic, maybe get but like I've been stunned at their second halves in this series. It's been really bad. And just a lack of focus. All the lessons you thought they learned, they didn't learn. Or it hasn't stuck with them. And like you could say the repeat champion stuff, like nobody's done it since the Warriors in 2018. Nobody else had a chance like the Celtics did this season. 2019, Durant, I mean, I guess now the Celtics have that injury, but they were down 3-1 basically before it happened. 2019, Durant and Klay Thompson both had season-ending injuries. 2020, the Raptors lost Kawhi. 2021, the Lakers lost their entire supporting cast. 2022, who won the 2021? But the Nuggets lost their entire supporting cast. Or
The Bucks. The Bucks won.
The Bucks lost Chris Middleton to injury before the playoffs started. Still took the Celtics to 7, but didn't get out of the second round.
The Nuggets had a chance last year. They blew a 30-point lead in Game 7 in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and they talked a lot about how the fatigue got to them. But also part of that was they lost Bruce Brown, they lost Jeff Green, they lost like key pieces and didn't have replacements for them. So this Celtics team was like the one team that brought everybody back. And they've had a lot of injury even before the Tatum thing. Like they're just not operating the same way they did last year. They're a little older. But I could not be more shocked by how the second halves have gone in this series. And so that I do believe that's something they would have had to reckon with. Now it's like a totally different conversation though. How do you guys think Joe Mazzulla will react as a coach without Tatum? And now, you know, he was treating this like they were going to have a window. He wanted to coach it, sort of coaching like to maximize for years. And now all of a sudden it's like, you don't have Tatum. You're not going to be a real contender. How does Joe Mazzulla handle that? I don't know. I really don't.
I feel like the first thing he's going to turn it into like that's the major motivator is like, but is it like genuine? Is it like, or do you have in the back of your head as a coach, like I know my roster isn't necessarily good enough, or you play it up like everyone in the league thinks you ain't shit because you don't have Jayson Tatum. I feel like that's kind of the natural Joe move is like, you can't control these things and we need to execute even that much better because we don't have Jayson Tatum to rely on. I think from it's fascinating from what Joe does from that perspective. I think a Jaylen Brown as the solo star season is fascinating. I just don't know, because we've seen him really struggle in moments when Jayson Tatum's not on the court, especially just Game 7 of that 2023 Eastern Conference Finals. But what does it look like where he's the main option for an entire year? I don't know how much I'm colored by how bad he has been in this series and how kind of hurt he has looked in this season. But I'm just like, I don't know necessarily what his potential is. And I don't know if that becomes like, do you really want the ball in Jaylen Brown's hands that often? Does he become more turnover prone? I don't know. I'm like, I think it's just a fascinating turn for like what, because he's always been on a team with better players than him. There's never been a Celtics team where Jaylen Brown is the best player. And so I think that's just a fascinating look at like what happens next season. And I think no matter who the cast is.
He's accepted that, but he's always stressed like I could do more if I was able to do more. And now maybe we see that. Now maybe we see, for better or worse, Jaylen Brown, you know, and I don't want to sit here and say he's promised to be on the roster next year because at this point I don't know if anybody is. But it would be fascinating to see Jaylen as the number one, the warts that come with that, the strengths that come with that, what it could unlock in him,
the potential growth. Like the guy has always gotten a little bit better in all of his seasons. Like maybe it's something that you see him just become that much better in a playmaker because he has to do that.
Yeah, in my mind, before we get to the like, I'm generally curious in the now too of like Game 5.
Yep.
As you like, how does this team come out? How does Jaylen Brown come out? What type of wrinkles do we see from Joe Mazzulla and his staff as the dry run, the trial run heading into next year? Because
do you think they play with pride, or do you think they kind of go 1, 2, 3 Cancun?
I lean towards pride, but I could see it going either way. Like
I lean towards pride too.
But it is
that's
situation.
a tough group, and when their backs are against the wall, that's always been when they've played their best.
Right. And for all the defense has been there all series up until the second half of Game 4, where it just totally came off the rails. And I think you put some of that on Joe, like you said, Packer. The lineups were baffling, and then the Celtics just weren't good enough. They got their ass kicked on the glass all night long. That's going to get even harder in Game 5 because your best rebounder, Jayson Tatum, is not going to be on the floor, and the Knicks know that, and they're going to be going for the kill shot. So, the Mazzulla part of this, like, it is not that what happens in the rest of the series is going to directly impact what this team does this offseason, but it will, like, if they put up a fight here, which I think they are very capable of. Like, this is not a huge talent mismatch without Jayson Tatum in this series. Like, the Celtics are, I don't think they're going to come back in this series, but they're capable of winning games against this Knicks team.
I also think they could look around and be like, we're still better than the Knicks.
Yeah.
I think
man,
that's definitely something that they could still think.
Right.
I don't think it's true after the way the first 4 games have gone.
What do you do though, Jay? Like, what, both of you guys, like, what do you guys, how you come out tomorrow, lineup wise, who are you leaning towards, rotation wise in this game?
You've got to hope Sam Hauser's okay.
Start.
Got to hope Sam Hauser's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
you're gonna find out what happened to him early.
Because I mean, when you lose 42 playoff minutes from Tatum, the one thing their rotation doesn't have extra of is a wing. And especially with Hauser, you assume he'd be limited with his sprained ankle. Do you go to Baylor Shireman? I think it's possible.
I think we're going to see a lot of double bigs and a lot of Peyton Pritchard. Like, I think that's how you just fill it in. And that's the issue, though. I thought the double bigs were terrible. Like, they just went at Kristaps last night. I felt like they were just trying to attack him and get him in the action. And I thought they really needed to get Jaylen in the game. But Kristaps drew the foul when Jaylen went to the sub back in the game. And then there's like another 4 minutes of basketball because they couldn't get Jaylen in for Kristaps. But I don't think the double big is the best way to defend this Knicks team right now. But you kind of have to lean on it just based on that's what your rotation is.
Let's just pause for a second to just marvel at Jayson Tatum's Game 4.
He was having one of the best games of his playoff career. Like, that's up there with Game 6 against the 76ers, Game 6 against the Bucks. Like, that's phenomenal. He was so good that he was keeping the Celtics in the game when they had one of the worst defensive third quarters I've seen them play ever. He was single-handedly keeping them in the game.
And the end of the first quarter, they're down 1. All of a sudden, Tatum just starts ripping threes.
I thought that was the game. I thought they're like, Joe Mazzulla emphasized end of quarters, and it was like rips threes, nails the 3 for 2. They nailed the 2 for 1. Tatum at the buzzer. It's like 12-0 run. And I was like, oh boy.
That was an incredible flurry. And then he just kept dominating. It was defense. It was steals. It was blocks. It was transition. It was 3 balls. It was mid-range. It was the post move against Anunoby. And I thought at the end of the third quarter, I don't know whether he got tired. They just like stopped moving the ball. I didn't think he got great looks. They fell behind 2. It's interesting in retrospect that they sat Tatum to start the fourth quarter because
I was shocked.
And he was working on that ankle too, I think, like earlier in that game as well. I saw a couple clips of that after the fact. So yeah, it is.
And so you have Yeah, so you have to wonder, was he fatigued? Did they know that he was hurting? Did they know that something was wrong with him? Yeah, in the timeout right before the injury, he and Nick Sang were working on the ankle, and I believe it was a left ankle they were working on. But you do wonder, like, was he overcompensating because he was hurt? Was that something they were conscious of? And I don't want to like blame that, because I think at the end of the day, like, they could have like carried Tatum off the court. They could have sent the mountain from Game of Thrones to carry him off the court, and he would have found a way to like get back on the court. He was not coming out of that game or staying out of that game. But he was just incredible, man. In that fourth quarter, it was like the 3-ball over Towns, the crazy like spin finish where he drove past Towns. He was saving them possession after possession. Even some of the possessions that became empty, I thought like he was hot as hell, has 40-something points or close to it, and he makes the extra pass to Drew Holiday in the corner for what would have been a huge three. Drew missed it. He found Kristaps on a roll. Kristaps botched it. I just felt like they let him down. Like, he was having the game of his life.
Talk about letting
He
someone down. Jay's internet
Score with
right now
him,
is letting-
whatever. To that.
Yeah, it was outside of Derek White's incredible first quarter, Tatum had no help in that game really. And given how well the Knicks were playing, it was wild that the Celtics were able to hold on for as long as they did, because the runs just kept coming and coming and coming for the Knicks. And then in the second half, like, Bridges turned into an all-star, Brunson did his thing, and the Celtics got tired. Tatum got gassed, but ultimately, like, this was a game like this from the Knicks was coming, and the Celtics knew that. And the problem was that they gave them 2 games when they were not even close to this good, and give themselves no margin for error. So it's like, when you look at the scope of this series right now, it's like it should be 2-2, probably should be 3-1, but the Celtics gave themselves no margin for error, and Jayson Tatum's heroics aren't good enough on this team right now when no one else is kind of rising to the table to play in an atmosphere in MSG that was, ready to explode that entire second half.
I just felt like throughout the whole series, it was just they had stretches in every game where they could have just buried the Knicks and just let up every time. Every single time they had a chance to bury the Knicks, it was like defensive mistake, leave someone wide open, turn it over and get beat in transition. Every single time. Like, just be solid one time when you're up 15 or 20. Just be solid. All they had to do once they got up 14 in the third quarter yesterday, just be solid. Make them make shots over you. That's it. And instead, they let the Knicks get it to 5 in like a minute and 20 seconds or whatever it was. And all of a sudden, they're hot. The Madison Square Garden crowd is back to life. And you're in a dogfight. And they're confident. And it just went so sideways for fatigue, whatever else. But now the Celtics are in just a pickle. If you're the front office, you haven't even thought of this scenario before. You haven't probably spent more than like
they've been exploring Kristaps and Drew Holiday trades for this whole lot. Like, I don't think they were completely
they haven't
caught off guard.
Explored it with the idea that Jayson Tatum is going to be out for at least 9 months, compromised for however long after that, and that they're retooling a roster that won't have him for at least the majority of next season.
It changes so much in terms of like, okay, what type of returns are you looking for? What, and A and B, like, just how much money are you looking to get off the books right now? Like, before it was like, all right, maybe we try to sneak under the second apron, but we're still going for this now. Now it's like, you knew a full reason. This was a 2-year window with this group as composed right now. That was like realistically feasible. But now the case can be made if like they need to do a reset at some point, like a fuller reset. This next offseason might be as good a time as any. Because what are you waiting for? You're gonna have to if you lose all these pieces around Tatum and Brown, how do you get them back? How do you build yourself back up? Because you're not going to have the salary cap flexibility if you're paying those guys, 70, 75% of the cap going forward. You're not going to be able to bring in these extra pieces. So how you build with that, maybe you decide Jaylen Brown, and it's just not feasible under the CBA to build with those two guys long term. And you get a huge offer for Jaylen Brown and you have to think about it. And so like stuff like that is now on the table, which certainly obviously was not going to be on the table barring any sort of injury.
It's also going to be a different perspective, I think, for Brad Stevens, because he took over and he just needed to like retool the supporting cast, and that was it. He found Al Horford again. He found Derek White. He found pieces that fit around Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Like that was his whole stated goal when he first arrived. Like I want to find guys that complement Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Now one of them is gone. You might have to retool like the rest of your core group because of salary purposes and just age purposes. Like, what do you do with Kristaps Porzingis? He's been totally undependable for various reasons for 2 straight years now.
That's the major concern is like, what value does Kristaps Porzingis have right now? And what value does a 36-year-old Drew Holiday with 3 years on his contract have right now? With the second apron.
He's 34 right now, almost 30.
Well, that changes things by almost 2 years, but
young buck.
But like with the salary cap, with the second apron, they have to take back money. You can't just trade. Like, can't they not aggregate salaries? Like, there's not like.
Or you find a team that has cap room, but there's not. To your point, Packer, there's not many teams that have it, and you're going to have to sweeten the pot in any scenario like that to get a team to take Drew Holiday's contract.
And I feel like Kristaps is a little bit better just because it's going to be an expiring. But the thing that really made me concerned as I was listening to the Low Post or whatever the new version of the Low Post today, he was like Derek White's the major trade ship with and that's just not a player I want to lose.
That's a no.
But if you want to bring back actual talent instead of just getting cap relief, that makes sense. But I think that's got to terrify you as a Celtics fan. And so, like, what in terms of even just bringing back a team for not next year, but the season after that, where Jayson Tatum is fully healthy, if you want to put talent around him, how do you turn these kind of, I would say, negative value contracts into actual players? And at that point, Al Horford,
who has a negative value contract?
I think Drew Holiday at that point is going to be.
I disagree.
He makes over $30 million a year, and I think he's a 16-game player right now. He is not a regular season guy or guy you can rely on in the regular season. And for that amount of money,
but there are a number of contending teams who will look at Drew Holiday and think that guy can help us. The way he's defended in this playoffs, especially, Drew Holiday has value. 100% Drew Holiday has value.
But you have to take back nearly the same amount of money that he makes. Like, what type of player are you going to get back that had like what players who match the kind of timetable and the age range of Tatum and this new?
You could look for like a young guy who's semi-proven,
like a Taylor Horton Tucker type.
No, that is not semi-proven. That is like the farthest thing from proven. I mean, he's proven dog shit. Like, come on, man. But like you could try to pitch like some team that has like pretty good young player and get that back and like a pick. I don't know.
I think you got to send out a pick just to get off Kristaps, and they have the pick swap for Derek White that's already out there 2028.
The Kristaps thing is going to be really interesting because, like I said, he's been totally undependable. Totally undependable. His and I don't want to blame him. He's sick. Like the guy clearly has no energy. He's clearly not right. But at the same time, the last 2 years, it's been one thing, it's been another. And eventually, like this team was designed so that Kristaps would be the number one center and Al Horford would back him up. Al Horford would play limited minutes. You'd have a threat who could beat switching, which, by the way, is what the Knicks have done a lot to try to stifle the Celtics offense. He was supposed to combat that, and he's been missing. He's done nothing. He hasn't been able at any point in his Celtics tenure to stay on the court. He hasn't been able to stay on the court even for 16, 25 games in the playoffs. And I just feel like you can't trust, but nobody else can trust that Kristaps Porzingis will help out either. Now, the ceiling is high. The ceiling is incredibly high. We've seen it with Kristaps. When he's right, that dude is a difference maker on both ends of the court. But there's a floor there that is very low. And it's hurt the Celtics this whole playoff run. It's really hurt them. He killed them in the Magic series. He was bad in the Magic series. Then the illness flared up, and he's been bad since. But the way I look at him now compared to the way I looked at him heading into last year's playoffs, very different.
Yeah, just a Drew Holiday is a guy that teams are going to want for what he can do in the postseason. Porzingis, that's not a selling point for him now. Like, he is like, we've seen enough of a track record of being like, that's not a guy you can count on being there when you need him to be there. And now, even when in that Orlando series, he just wasn't up to the task in the playoffs, like, period. And even, like last year in the Miami series, I don't think he acquitted himself well either before he got hurt. Obviously, he'll always have his finals moment, which was great.
That was a hell of a moment.
Which is a hell of a moment.
An incredible moment.
But I just watched that clip the other day. He has more bounce and more like just like actually taking jump shots in that clip in game one of the finals. I haven't seen that version of Kristaps Porzingis in like since before the first sickness that was in like February. Like he looked like an athlete in that game one in the finals. I just haven't seen that version of him in a while.
Yeah. It's no, it's tough because those are big contracts for both of those guys. And if you're maneuvering, like, you're not just trying to figure out, okay, what type of value can we get for them? How do we move off? Like, you need to dump salary. Like, that is part of the equation here. And that is going to be a tough tightrope to walk for Brad Stevens. Of being like, and that's why we have conversations about Jalen and things like that, being like, okay, if no one wants Porzingis and teams want Drew, but he makes too much money, like, where do we go to here to make this work? And then guys like Sam Hauser are going to come up too, because that's just like, again, a great value, a guy that will be a very good player in this league a long time for the Celtics or somewhere else, but that's a lot easier contract to move than Porzingis or Drew.
Is this lining up for Peyton Pritchard All-Star next season?
The keys will be there for him. Unless Derek White takes him away.
Definitely starter.
Yeah.
I mean, if they get rid of Drew, then he'll definitely have a chance to start. And without Tatum, he should get a lot more touches. If they move other pieces of the rotation, like Peyton Pritchard could be pretty central piece to their offense next year. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star, but
you're not saying that.
He's going to get a lot of opportunity. Let's just put it that way. He will have closer.
What's the over-under points per game? What's the over-under points per game for him next year?
What did he average? 13 this season? 14?
21.5.
Whew. I was be like 18.5, but
sorry for being optimistic.
I'll go 17 or 18.
What's Jalen's usage rate next year? Like, does Jalen try to like average like 28 points a game on 40% from the field?
No. They've coached that out of him, I think.
But Jayson Tatum's been on the floor for that coaching.
But when he's off the floor, what really skyrockets is Jalen's assists. Like if you look at his assists when Tatum is off the court, they like double. And maybe we get like 6 assists Jalen next year. Maybe he's on another team. I don't know. Everything is in flux, right? Like it's crazy to think about how much everything changed so quickly.
Who do they start in Tatum's? Like who's going to be power forward for this team? Or do you just do double bigs next time? I'm just thinking of like all the
It's
rebounding.
Al
I'm thinking
Horford.
like all the stuff that Tatum does.
It's Al Horford. You're starting.
But is Al
power
Horford
forward
back
next
here?
year.
Is Al Horford going to come back here? Like knowing if they're taking a huge step back. I assume from like everything, there was no doubt that he would have been back if they could afford him this year. But now it's like, is he taking a huge pay cut to come play for a non-contender next year? I don't know. That's a fascinating question for Al Horford in his camp. Does he want to play 2 more years? Does he want to be back when Tatum's back? Like he probably has it in him to do that. Do the Celtics cut enough salary where they can offer him a fair market deal? I could see that happening too.
Do they just name him Brad Stevens' next in line?
Special assistant.
Yeah.
Just sign Ian to a 2-way deal.
Do they just keep him as Udonis has him forever, or he's just a player forever no matter what? But seriously, like I thought, like even though the finances were against the possibility of keeping Al Horford, like I thought he was coming back. And that he wanted to come back and he wanted to keep it together and that he was too important not to bring back. And now, like, he's still really important, not just to what they do on the court, where he's far too important. Like, they would be much better off if Kristaps Porzingis was giving them what he was supposed to be doing. But, like, off the court, his value extends far beyond what he does for 28 to 34 minutes in a game. He's a perfect pro. He attacks every day right. And those are the guys you want around. So if they do lose him, that's a huge loss. And I could see him being like, you know what? I won my championship. I love these guys. Let me stick around and see this through. And like I also don't think he's necessarily like just got one more year left in him. I know that might be crazy to be like he could be playing at 40 and being 41 in the playoffs in a couple of years, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he has two years at a pretty reasonable level of basketball left in him.
Celtics certainly hope so. Like,
but still, his future clearly in question. Everybody's future is in question. The only guys that like would seem to benefit from this are like the Baylor Shiremans and Jordan Walshes, who will suddenly like, you're going to get a chance.
Yeah.
Probably get a real chance next year to see what they can do. And not like a throw them out there for 15 minutes a few times, but like, yeah, you guys might be like a significant part of the rotation next year. Because like B-Rob said, you're replacing so much. You're replacing wing size. You're replacing a lot of the time your point guard. You're replacing the guy who guards centers. You're replacing one of your best rebounders. You're replacing like fucking everything. And I mean, I was thinking about this, like how many guys could have gotten injured, and it's probably a stupid thing to rank. But there aren't many guys that could have got injured where it matters more than Tatum. Like it's a extremely short list.
Yeah, like
Jokic,
three
Giannis.
guys.
And Giannis, like he's gonna get traded anyway. So I wouldn't put him on that list. Like they stunk anyway. Like this is a legitimate title contender, maybe a title favorite, even if they lost this year. Like they would be one of the favorites entering next year if they kept the bulk of their roster and still had Tatum. So you lose that. He's on the Celtics, which is an all-time franchise. He's been first team All NBA like 5 straight years. He plays every single night. Like was as dependable as anybody could get. He doesn't give a shit about anything except winning. So he's a great guy to have around. Like there are so many ways that Jayson Tatum was like the perfect star. And for him to go down, it's cruel, man. Like it just sucks.
Right in his prime. Like literally entering the height of his prime right now. Like within that game itself in game 4. And now a year of that taken away and potentially totally changing the trajectory of this team for years to come after it gets winning series.
Before the playoffs, how much money would you have, like, I don't even know how to phrase the question. It's going to be a Pacers-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals, which is fucking insane considering there's 2 60-win teams. Like, it's just, you never know. One of the things I like about the NBA is that it's like reliable. Like, you know, the good teams are going to rise to the top. And so this is so shocking.
It's like the hockey playoffs took over.
And I don't like that. I hate that shit. I fucking hate it when it's like, oh, goalie stood on his head.
The Celtics just had some bad puck luck in this series.
Oh, just
a lot of bad puck luck. Some significantly bad puck luck.
They kind of did, though. They didn't make a shot for all of game 2. Like Jayson Tatum hits that 1-3 in the corner in game 2. They win that game. Like the wide open 3 in the corner. They did have some bad puck luck. And it's a coward's move to say that.
It was just tough puck luck. Can't beat the puck luck sometimes. But yeah, it's a wild playoff. And I mean, I think like a month ago, you would have looked at the Towns Randall trade and been like, they both lost. Neither of those teams got better from that. And Minnesota, like, yeah, they increased their salary, whatever. They might meet in the finals. Yep. It could be the Towns Randall trade reuniting in the finals. What? The Pacers? Are they winning? Or
They're about to win. They're up by 8 with a minute left to play.
Wow. So they were down by what, double digits again early too? And then
they were down a lot early. Cavs.
I'm just becoming a huge Pacers fan for this Eastern Conference Finals because the New Yorkers I had to deal with last night were just so upsetting. Just a bunch of. I was before the Tatum injury. That was one of the best like basketball playoff environments I've been in. Even with the Celtics were about to lose, that was just. I'd never been. You guys have been to more playoff road games than I have. I've only been to the Garden and then last year in the Dallas in the finals. That was a pretty electric environment in MSG. Like that was. And the duel between Tatum and Brunson and like kind of going back and forth, even though we were like the Celtics were about to lose, I was having fun being like, this is what playoff basketball should be. And that just like put such a damper on the evening. But like before that injury, that was so much fun.
You know what I thought was a cool moment? And it was a shitty moment for the Celtics. But when Tatum was getting carried off, the crowd gave him a cool ovation.
That's how you know good sports fans.
And I thought it was more than politeness. It was like, we're tipping our cap to you. You were amazing tonight. There was nothing the Knicks could do with you. Like, salute to everything you left on the court. Salute to the way you played tonight. I thought that was like ultimate respect, the way that they cheered him when he was getting carted off the court. It wasn't just like a cordial, oh, we're wishing the best for this guy. It was like, no, like that guy fucking killed our team. And we want to let him know we appreciated his effort, even though it was against the Knicks. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that only happens in a few places, and MSG is probably on the top of that list. But I had Suichi next to me the whole game. Packard was just like, this is amazing. This is amazing from like an atmosphere. And he's right. Like that's as good as it gets for playoff basketball outside of TD Garden. And yeah, it sucks that it ended like that for the Celtics on many fronts.
Do they win
gotta
game
win.
5?
They're winning game 5. I can
I go
feel
yes.
it.
They're 4.5-point favorites.
That's
Is
pretty
that
wild.
true? Is that like remain the case? Like I know that was instantly after the game, but I feel like they hadn't had the full Tatum injury yet.
Let me check right
There's
now.
no way they can remain the favorites right now.
4.5-point favorites.
4.5 points.
That's poppycock.
At least that's what Yahoo Sportacular is telling me.
Is
or
that
at
some sort
least
of
used to be
off-brand
called
of Yahoo
Sportacular.
Sports?
No, it's their app. The name, it used to be called Sportacular, and now I think it's just called Yahoo Sports, but I still call it Sportacular.
You guys start Pritchard or double big?
I think you start Pritchard. The athleticism of
You need points
the
too.
Knicks has been a big deal.
Yeah.
And get Kristaps a shot or something. Open up his lungs, get him some smelling salts. Do something.
It's, I don't know, even if he keeps looking like that, get 30 minutes of Luke Cornett. Could give you a little bit more defensively than what KP can at this point, but I think this is
it's crazy how quickly a series can swing.
Yeah.
Like Celtics were down 2-1 on the road, and you still thought they're fine. They'll be fine. They were up 14. Like, yeah, they're fine. They're going to win this thing. Then everything goes to shit. Tatum gets carted off. The entire series looks terrible. Next season now looks shaky at best. The offseason, who knows what the fuck is coming. It is crazy. And just goes to show you, like, you cannot take anything for granted in the NBA. If you have a chance to win, go win it. And I saw a lot of Celtics fans like being thankful that at least the Celtics got it. Because how much would this have hurt if they didn't win last year? And it was like all you could remember was like the meltdown against the Warriors. All you could remember was Game 7 against the Heat, or the first 3 games of that Heat series. All you could remember was just the excruciating losses. And then this happens to Tatum. Like, at least he got his title first.
Yeah.
And he can still build. I mean, he already has an incredible resume, but he'll have a lot of time to build on his accomplishments. But at least he got that title first, and they got that title first, and they're not worried about that, because that would be hell. Like, if they won 61 games this year after winning 64 last year and didn't win a title in either, this would be like one of the most it's a heartbreaking situation anyway, don't get me wrong. But there's something nice about him at least having that championship in his back pocket, him at least being stamped with that before running into this brutal injury. And he's like never gotten injured before. Like, truly never. Even when he sprains an ankle, like, he just like comes back. He doesn't even stay off the court. That's when you knew when he was down and like hurt that bad. It was like, ooh, that's not good.
As soon as I saw him call the timeout, and I was like, oh, fuck, that's bad.
Yeah. Last one of the game. Says it all. Yikes.
We will have many different conversations than we were planning to have. Probably sometime over the rest of this series. I think it's possible the Celtics win Game 5.
It's possible they win Game 6. It's possible they win Game 7. The only way to win this series is to win Game 5.
I liked your Apollo 13 clip, Packard.
It might be our finest hour. It might be our finest
Where's
hour.
Ed Harris? Get Ed Harris. Pump up the crowd.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Oh, in Apollo 13, when they stirred the tanks and they had to bring those guys back, Gene Kranz, flight commander, they had to figure out how to make air different, and they brought those boys back home. Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert. I have deeper Apollo 13 bag than I even knew. Gary Sinise.
I guess so.
Packard posted a clip today. It's a good rock clip.
I guess so. Anyway, we'll be here talking about whatever's to come. There's going to be some interesting decisions for the Celtics coming up. It's not going to look like what we thought it was going to look like. But man, there's still. I mean, Tatum will be back in a year. He'll still be 28. Still have a lot of time in his prime, assuming he can get back. A lot of guys have gotten back. Kevin Durant, give him a call. Figure out what he did. Do all of it.
Breonna Stewart won an MVP. Dominique Wilkins came back and averaged like 24 in his coming back from Achilles. My brother did some deep diving on the Achilles post-Achilles research and was just texting me all day today. And that was his two best examples. So
Salute to Stewie.
salute to Stewie, MVP.
Salute to Stewie. Yeah, we'll be back soon. Not the podcast we expected to have today, but just crazy times, emotional times. Like I said, truly second most emotional locker room I've ever been in. Second quietest locker room I've ever been in. And not like a distant second either. It was hard to watch. Just his family members, his friends, their reactions. Because they were just as gutted. Like they were all just gutted for him. There were people like crying because of the injury. And that's how serious it is. That's how significant it is. That's how altering it is. Long road back for him, but good luck to him. Good luck to Brad Stevens. It's going to be a different ride, but we'll be there for you Monday through Friday. Thank you guys for listening. We love you all.
Steel particle, the Boston Celtics steel particle.